going to come back to power again when the big push starts. Lengicha, when I was listening to Dr. William Ahadzie, attentively suggests the MPP government was a circus one. Lengi, good morning to you. It's been a while. Anyway, Doc, first, what's the big push? Because I realized in 2020, that was the big policy that you were pushing. What is it? Is it still a huge part of the work that the government will do?
Yes, it's basically we have infrastructure deficits, and what happens is that you have a growing demand for facilities and services. Because basically your population is growing. So there are variables. For instance, electricity. You have to continuously increase the generation capacity to meet demand. And the demand comes from population growth, demand from industry, even exports. And so electricity, part of the mandate of a social democratic government is to provide infrastructure, both physical and social infrastructure, because if you leave the provision of those resources to the private sector, for instance, if we leave the provision of major roads to private sector entirely, what you're going to find is that they are going to toll the roads so they can recover. It's like the approach of build, operate, and then transfer. Now, if they build those major highways and they are tolling the major highways, if you look at our production system, so we have to move goods from the farms to the markets. And if they are going to be paying tolls, huge tolls, particularly privately determined tolls on the roads, it's going to affect the incomes of Ghana, which is largely a smallholder farming community. That's something that the state must provide. If you recall, under President Rawlings, we extended electricity to their farm plains, not on the basis of economic rates of return. If you use that argument, then it means that, well, if we are going to provide certain infrastructure facilities, then the people have to pay for them immediately, or they should add to that. But if you use the social rate of return argument, then you can extend the electricity, you can build the road, and then in time, it will generate local economic development. For instance, if you extend electricity, and it was done, we had to run cables under the Water River to their front plains. Today, there are micro and small enterprises that have resulted because the electricity has been extended. There are coal stores, there are welding factory, welding shops, and all of those businesses. So infrastructure is important in ensuring that you can engender development. And so it is on account of that, especially where you have the deficits. And that was the reason why President Mahama fixed the Doomsap thing when he was leaving. He improved the generation capacity, and we had excess. Now, over time, the consumption has virtually taken away those ones. And therefore, you need to go back there and continue the process of providing those facilities, those infrastructure facilities. We don't have roads. We don't have railway. For instance, it is cheaper to construct a railway line and allow goods to move. The Temam-Pakanan Railway was supposed to help the transport of goods and items to the landlocked countries in the sub-region. And so those things are so critical because then they enhance economic development. Now, that also was turned into something fanciful, that we needed trains to transport people to Akosombo. But no, the original intention was to move these heavy-duty goods so you can spare the destruction of the roads as well. But there's also the mass transit systems. I mean, of course, the hanging train and all those things are part of it. If you look at the 40-year development plan, you would find that it's very, very comprehensive about provision of infrastructure. And it's on account of that our leader and our president had indicated that he was going to at least give effect to that particular big push policy, and he's done that. It's in our manifesto again, and we believe that he would do it. I mean, when I was coming, I just drove over the Bosokai overpass, and I saw that that's a manifestation of his dream in the past, and we were going to, a lot of that will be happening again. It will ease movement, but it will also create. We still have the West African ECOWAS highway to construct. That must be done to increase the movement, free movement of people and goods in the sub-region. So it's one of his key objectives is to actually, take advantage of this opportunity to do all those things that he didn't do. He didn't finish when he started.
There's also David Mensah again who says, let's look critically at the Ghana TVET service.
Yes.
With respect to apprenticeship programs and job creation initiatives of the government. Would you use TVET?
Definitely. This is not a story about me, but I used to be the acting controller of apprenticeship in NVTI in the early 80s.
Okay.
And I actually was also a project manager for a program, a World Bank sponsored program, Vocational Skills and Informal Sector Support Project, which led to the establishment of the TVET and the CODVET and all of that.
Okay.
So it is so essential. As I was saying, the skill acquisition, employable skill acquisition is so critical for our young people that must be done. By all means, it has to be done. And indeed, it is in the manifesto as well. That allows for a quicker transition from training to the world of work. Very quick. And then the stream of incomes to those who acquire skills over a certain period normally tends to be higher than those who just acquire normal standard education. So for a country that, I was trained in Germany, and my master's was in Germany, and the Germany has put a lot of emphasis on apprenticeship for the youth. The same thing, I was in China as well. They also put a lot of investment in training people in skills. All these fanciful things that we see are things that they stimulate the young people to just use technology to develop. And they earn money. In fact, there are business people who have been set aside who would support incubative products. And so it is so critical for us today. The difficulty we have had is people think that if you went to a technical school, then you are less intelligent or is unattractive. But trust me, if you look around your room, wherever you are, you will see innovation by people who are actually skilled people. They do all the design and indeed all of that. So apprenticeship and TVET, technical vocational education and training, important. People think that is only, they just do fitters. I recall when we were introducing the JSS at the time, they said we were trying to make carpenters and masons out of our children. If we had continued at the time, we would have had a huge workforce that have skills in this country. But we acquiesced to the pressure from our political opponent, and then we dropped that because we're building workshops in schools across the country at that time. But then we stopped that. We need to return to it as quickly as possible and sustain that over a period. We have to shift funding into TVET as a way of, improving labor market operations. Labor market participation.
Anyway, the attention will turn immediately to the 120 days agenda.
Yes.
You said already you see 4, which he has already went through.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering why the 120-day social contract?
It is just the exigencies of the time. Okay. I mean, the degeneration, the retrogression has been so massive that you needed you needed to give, sometimes when you are sick and you go to the doctor, they would do intravenous infusion just so they can clean up the system quickly. Otherwise, they can give you drugs to go over time. The level of degeneration in the system requires a massive and a very strong approach from the couple of days to reset some of these ones. And that's why normally it's 100 days, but it moved to basically 4 months for a number of these things. Those that are actionable will be undertaken within that period. So it is necessary. That's part of the resetting, and then we'll build on that. Because if you look at some of them, you will see very interesting ones. I like number... establish an accelerated export development council. It is so important because we need to shore up the weak city. And therefore, you need to do a thing like this because people complained about the exchange rate. And now if you can't export, if you can't produce and export, and there are many of the industries are producing under capacity. And so if you can increase their capacity utilization, then you are probably creating value. You are adding value, and you are increasing the goods and services in the market. Now, if you recall, our president also said that he would divert government procurement to as a take-up of what will come out of the 24-hour economy, because government is the biggest procurement agency in the country. And that in itself is creating market for this. And he had also said that it would be better to, even if the prices of the goods produced locally are slightly higher than those imported, it would be better to procure that one and give jobs to the Ghanaian industries than to import from different countries, and then you're creating jobs in other countries. So it is important to do these things at the early stage of the administration. It's not, as I said, it's not a time to try to understand what's going on. It's a time to take action. That's why he would not allow himself to be diverted by all these things that people are beginning to introduce. If you feel like feeding, then send them to Kempinski for feeding. No,
Are they all attainable for you?
Oh, in fact, because they are attainable, that's why they've been put here.
Within 120 days?
Within 120 days, yes. What is extraordinary here, which we cannot be done? I mean, they introducing free tertiary for persons with disability. The Ghana Medical Trust Fund, you can create that one. Free sanitary pads can be done. Institute inquiries into forensic audits into the following: the collapse of indigenous Ghanaian banks, financial institutions, illegal printing of money, illegal and inflated single source contracts, all of those things. These ones are just introducing policies that can allow for investigations. Those ones can be done. A policy banning political appointees from purchasing state assets can be done easily. Allocate seed money for the Women's Development Bank. That's fairly straightforward. And indeed, it has to do with even processes of disbursement. And these days, you can leverage technology to ensure that people can use their Ghana card to access resources, and payment platforms that will allow them to pay all of that. So there's nothing extraordinary in it.
Doc, thank you. I'd like to thank you very much
I
for
appreciate
coming. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. William Ahadzie is rector at Ghana Institute of Social Democracy. He calls himself the headmaster of the MDC school. Wonderful to have him this morning. We have to take you live to Parliament, where the Appointments Committee has started the vetting of the 3 ministerial nominees that have been made by President John Dramani Mahama.
One station.
Accra 2022, 23, 24 and more. We don't try, back live. Commercial free. Versus Mid-Morning Show.
Oh, we love what you have in bad drama. Mid-Morning Show.
The Mid-Morning Show.
Yes.
90.5.
Good morning, my neighbors. On Channel My Drama.
Experience quality
Radio station.
Put your hands up.
Rave.
Yes.
Powerful. Morning vibes and more. Accra 90.5 with Ochabe by Drama.
Oh, we love you.
Your Mid-Morning Show on Radio Go.
We are back like 100 times. 2 times bigger. 90.5.
All the things I know that you deserve.
Mid-Morning Show. Wait, Ochabe by Drama.
Are you looking for an institution of higher learning to unlock your potentials? Look no further than Valley View University, Ghana's premier chartered private university. Valley View University offers undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs in business administration, education, computer science, agriculture science, agribusiness, information technology, nursing and midwifery, development studies. Join a community that shapes character and provides excellent education. Apply now, www.admissions.vvu.edu.gh. For enquiries, call 050-970-3052 or 030-7011-846. Valley View University, excellence, integrity, and service.
Agriculture is essential for any society to feed itself. It plays a vital role in the growth of the economy of any country and its development. This is the platform that brings finality to all critical issues in agriculture and agribusiness in Ghana. On the Ghanaian Farmer Show, we do more than just talk. We resolve problems,